Bulls and Bears this week, Gary B. Smith, Jonas Max Ferris, John Layfield, missed those fellas, along with Lee Carter and Chuck Rocha. Welcome to everybody. John, let's start with Hillary's tax plan. She told everyone Thursday night that she'll hike them on companies, Wall Street, and the wealthy.
Yeah, and you ask which is going to benefit the economy. Obviously, that is going to hurt the economy, especially the fact that Ms. Clinton is going to go after business. What has happened is Bernie Sanders drugged Hillary Clinton to the left during this primary, and that's where she is staying right now because she has to appeal to her base, and that certainly is a problem going forward. She's basically leaving taxes flat on the middle class. She's raising just on the wealthy, Wall Street, and business. The problem we have is 19% right now is the tax revenue of GDP. That is at the very top end of the range economists say that we need. So it's not a matter that we need more revenue. We need some fiscal constraints. That's a different debate. When you compare that to Donald Trump, he's going to cut taxes massively. Now, will that spur the economy? Absolutely. The long term, if Mr. Trump is wrong about how many jobs that creates, you're going to add about 9 or 10 trillion to the deficit over the next decade.
Gary B. Smith, I know that you're a numbers dude and you're a geek like me, and the Tax Foundation did the work on this. Trump's economy, with his tax plan, grows at a double-digit rate. Hillary Clinton's is actually negative.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think and I will take being a geek, by the way, as a compliment from you, Jake. If you're a geek, Kagan, I'm complimented to be also be a geek. Look, I don't think anyone would argue, and I'm sure Chuck would say that the next 4 years under Hillary is going to be like the last 8 years under Obama. So you got to look at the big driver of jobs is GDP. What's Obama's GDP growth been since the recession? About half the average, about 14% amongst the prior 7 recessions that we have. It's been anemic. That's why, 70% of the country says we're on the wrong track. We have labor force participation rate that's back at 1977 levels. We have home ownership percentage that's back in Lyndon B. Johnson days. I mean, this has been a horrible recovery because of the tax increases, because of the government overreach, because of the stimulus money that was spent that no one knows what it did. And you talk about the Donald Trump, that the double digit. Yes, the Tax Foundation found that he would achieve an 11% growth in GDP. Does it come with some costs? Absolutely. But the thing that we're waiting for, the other shoe to drop, is how he's going to cut government spending, as John alluded to. But at this point, knowing what I've seen in the past and what I hope to see in the future, I definitely think Trump is the person to create jobs and increase the GDP.
Chuck, we do know that under the Obama administration, during this expansion, growth has been the weakest that we've seen since 1949 at least.
Well, I'll say this first of all. Dang, I miss Gary B. and his numbers. It's been a little bit since I've been on the show, and it just reminded me, as I've been out there on the campaign trail, that I know what I'm talking about, right? So I've been traveling around the country, as a lot of people know, running a campaign. So I've got to talk to a lot of Americans like me who own a small business. Now, I know that John has my back on this, that I run an LLC, and I'm taxed at a really high bracket. And I've had an amazing spring and made a good bit of money. At some point, I'll have to have a conversation off the air with Gary B. about what I do with my little bit of money, because I don't know this world. But what I do know is that I've hired 2 more people. So when I make more money, I get to hire more people, but I'm paying this exorbitant tax break. Now, Hillary's tax plan says that there's lots of corporations that aren't paying anywhere near what I'm paying as a small businessman. That's what's wrong with our economy. It's not me paying too much taxes, but corporations and big business not even paying half of what I'm having to pay. And I think the American people will get that.
Lee?
Well, I think that, I think it's a nice sentiment to say that small business are the ones that suffering, but big businesses have the opportunity to take their business overseas. They're manufacturing overseas. They're doing things in other places. If we don't start giving big companies tax breaks, they've already shown us that they're going to leave. Look at what Pfizer's done. Look at what other companies have done. If we don't make it more favorable here, we're going to lose jobs. We're going to lose, and I think that we have to give incentives to bring the jobs and back here.
From 35% to 15%, Jonas, is where Trump wants to take the overall corporate tax rate. Hillary Clinton won't even commit to a lower rate that Obama has backed.
I want to go to 0 while we're at it. Look, first of all, let's one quick myth about corporations is double taxation, okay? If they paid zero, the executives are still being paid a higher tax rate than Chuck Rocha. So you're like acting like that's their rate. Oh, they only pay 10%. It's on top of all the income taxes that all the shareholders and executives get a salary. It's a double taxation system. All right, getting back to the differences. Look, Hillary is a tax increase. Trump's got a tax cut plan. One's better for the economy in the short run. If we were trying to get out of a recession, we want the Trump plan. The problem is when you eventually have to fix that hole you just created in the budget, you have to have a tax increase, because I don't believe anyone's going to cut spending, and that causes an economic drag. We're in an economic drag right now, partially because Obama had to raise taxes to pay for the tax cuts we had before that we couldn't have paid for because we never cut anything. So I will say that in closing, they both have some good things. The Trump plan has a zero rate on the first certain amount of money. That's a nice, clean way to do taxes. And the Hillary thing has like a real where the wealthy people have to pay a certain amount regardless if they're doing it through corporations or carry address. And that's a nice part. So if you can combine those two pieces, I think you can make something work.
He said in closing, John Layfield, I have a feeling that's not the last time we will be hearing from Jonas during this program. I want to ask you, though, Hillary Clinton on Thursday night, she talks about this massive government spending plan that she is planning her first 100 days in office. Again, it gets to government knows better on how to spend our money, not the individual and not the person who actually earned it.
Yeah, and that is absolutely insane. Look, Gary Johnson's the only one, by the way, that even has a balanced budget. That is a separate debate, but it is based, the debt is doubled essentially under President Obama. It doubled essentially under President Bush. This is absolutely unsustainable. The government refuses to rein in spending, and the fact that they can spend more money. Look, this stimulus package, look at stimulus before and after and during this stimulus for shovel-ready jobs. It was flat. It was exactly the same. This money went to shore up pensions. This money went to shore up unions' obligations. That's what this money went to. That's what government spends money on. And the fact that my pal Chuck LaRoche is talking about the fact that small business can pay, because they pay through an LLC and they can pay city and state, they're paying 50% of their taxes. And these corporations, it is criminal, and I mean that literally. It is criminal what these guys are getting away with, because they bought off politicians over the years. They're paying a 23 to 25% effective tax rate. You want to compete with overseas, like Ireland at 12.5%, that's a separate issue. You've got to lower these small businesses' regulations and taxes, because that's where over half of your jobs are created.
Chuck, we haven't had growth faster than 3% during the entire Obama administration, period.
That's a great point, but it was much better growth than where we were when we came out of the Bush years. Now, is it nowhere where we need to be at? And we should expect more from our growth, and we should have a robust economy, and we should have businesses growing every single day. There needs to be the kind of investment that John was talking about into infrastructure, not just shovel-ready, but things that actually put people back to work that America needs. We have roads and bridges that are crumbling, and I'm not saying, Gary B., that should go to somebody's pocket or that should be wasted away on something else, but really invested into making what's always made us different is our roads, our bridges, our infrastructure was state-of-the-art. Now it's falling to pieces.
Gary B.
Well, the left loves to cherry-pick the numbers. They will look at the number of jobs Obama's created from the very bottom of the recession and go to the very top and say, look how good of a president he is. If you take the end of the recession, since Chuck brought it up, and I don't want to get down too deep into it, the 25 quarters since, the GDP growth under Obama has been 14%. After the recession in 2001, it was 17%. After the recession in 79-80, it was 34%. There was just no way you can look at the actual numbers and say that Obama has been a growth president. He's been at best an okay president because of the things you point out, Dagan, the things that John pointed out, that $833 billion in stimulus was, we might as well taken that money and sent it out to the Gulf of Mexico and let it go to the bottom, because that's how much good it did. That's how much of these shovel-ready jobs it did. That's how much of the TARP it cleaned up. It did nothing, and that's what we can count on with 4 or, God bless, 8 more years of Hillary.
7.5 years in, more than 2/3 of this country thinks that it's headed in the wrong direction. Thank you, guys. Cavuto on Business.